Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the Messy Minimalist, and today I want to talk to you guys about gluten. So, a couple videos ago I mentioned that I don't eat anything with gluten in it, and I had quite a few of you ask me to elaborate on that. So, this video today is all about gluten and gluten intolerance. The purpose of this video is not to convert anybody one way or another. If you are watching this and you are one of those people who don't think gluten intolerance is a thing, that's totally fine. I'm not here to try to convince anybody that it is or isn't. It's just to talk about my experiences with it. So I am going to talk about kind of my experiences, how I discovered that I had issues with gluten, what my symptoms were when I discovered that, the changes that I've made to get to the point that I am at now, which is where I consume absolutely no gluten whatsoever while still having a relatively delicious diet, and my thoughts and feelings on the subject. So I thought it would be a good day to shoot it today because yesterday I actually got a box in the mail. This video will be a little bit different than my usual ones because I'm going to do an unboxing in a sense. I not only shop at grocery stores where I have to physically get in my car and drive to them, but I also shop online for some stuff that's just a little bit harder for me to get because of my circumstances here. But some of you might know about gluten and gluten intolerance already. Some of you might have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna overly simplify it actually. Yeah, that's just what I'm gonna have to do. I'm not going to get scientific about this, though I love to, and I could talk forever about the scientific side of gluten and the properties of it and a lot more than that, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to overly simplify it, and if you guys want to discuss it more with me, we can kind of take that offline or take it to the comments, whatever you want to do. Typically, the things that you can't have if you have issues with gluten are bread-like things. Pizzas, pastas, bread, obviously, like a loaf of bread, cookies, I don't know, just bready stuff, cakes. Whatever has a bread-like property probably has gluten in it. It can be a little bit confusing, like, okay, so is it just bread? Well, no. At its simplest, it's like not having wheat. The quick way, if you're not very familiar with what gluten actually is, if it has wheat in it, you definitely can't eat that. Oh, okay, you just can't eat wheat? Well, that's not so bad. Well, pretty much everything has wheat in it. Almost everything you buy at the grocery store has wheat in it. If you're not sure and you're trying to think like, well, why would this have wheat in it? Think of it this way. If there's a chance that you put flour in it, it probably is wheat flour. Wheat flour is extremely cheap. Wheat is extremely cheap. Flour is just such an easy additive if you need to thicken something up. The point is if it has flour in it, it's basically out of the picture. So there's a lot of stuff. Like if you look on the back, chances are of almost anything you see at the grocery store, it's gonna say contains wheat. And unfortunately, wheat has gluten in it. That's how you know. You won't necessarily see it say gluten on the back. It'll say wheat, and therefore you know that wheat has gluten. So at its simple form, if it has wheat in it, it is off limits. So what's the big deal about gluten and why am I gluten-free? Let me first talk to you guys about what my habits were like before so you can fully understand what a big jump it was for me to get to a gluten-free diet that I am at now. I find and have heard a lot that people who have what they consider gluten intolerance and not a diagnosed celiac disease oftentimes are people who consumed the most gluten. It's not something that you just get out of the blue because you occasionally have wheat. It's because we overdid it with wheat, and I was definitely one of those people. I overdid it big time, and I'll just kind of explain where I was at the peak of my gluten consumption. When we lived in New York, I worked at an advertising agency who had a couple large clients. Among those large clients, one of them was a domestic beer company, so we had unlimited beer flowing at the agency at all times, just a tap sitting there, and anytime you wanted it, you could have a drink of beer. Beer has gluten in it, in case anyone was wondering. Another one of the clients that we had was a large cereal company. That large cereal company would give unlimited amounts of cereal to the creatives at the agency. When we were hungry at all, we would pour ourselves a bowl of cereal throughout the day, and sometimes multiple bowls of cereal. And again, cereal, if you look at the back of most of it, will contain gluten or wheat. So I wasn't drinking beer on a daily basis, don't get me wrong, but I was eating lots of cereal on a daily basis and cookies because they gave us cookies too. I was eating that every single day. Every single morning I would eat toast and eggs. every morning. 2 pieces of toast and a fried egg, sometimes 2. Oftentimes, as a snack when I got home from work, I would eat more toast. I really like toast. So the morning I would have toast and eggs. There's a dose of gluten right there. I would go to work. I would have bowls of cereal, cookies, whatever they had in the fridge there. That's another dose of gluten. I would sometimes have a beer either at work or after work, gluten. And then I would come home. Every single night we had a tortellini or a pasta dish and a vegetable. That was another dose of gluten. So every single meal that I had, like the main component of that meal was something with gluten in it. Our favorite bakery was just down the road from us, and it was called Magnolia Bakery, which is an awesome bakery. By the way, if you ever go to New York City, it is so good. Also filled with gluten. So we spent a lot of our time consuming big fluffy bready-like things that had a lot of gluten in them. And all the while, I didn't really know that I had an issue with it, so I just kept eating it. And it's easy to eat. Everything that you find out there has gluten in it, really. It's kind of incredible. Well, what I'm not telling you are the symptoms that I had while consuming all of this gluten. The symptoms included headaches. Lots and lots of headaches. Almost every single day I had some sort of headache, and I just thought that I was a stressed out person who had migraines. I got headaches. I was willing to deal with that. I had no idea what they could be connected to. I assumed it was just a me thing. Irritability. I was like, well, of course I'm irritable. I have headaches all the time. Why wouldn't I be irritable? I have a headache. Sleepiness. I was tired all the time. I would be sleepy all throughout the workday. I would get home from work and I would be so tired. And I was like, well, I worked really hard. Obviously I'm tired. And so I made all these excuses for why I was tired. But I was napping almost every day. At some point throughout the day after I got home, I would have to take some kind of nap because I was so tired and irritable and had a headache. So those symptoms alone on an almost daily basis really suck. Then we get to kind of the worst symptoms, which are also on a daily basis. A lot of kind of abdominal discomfort. That's not the kind of thing that you talk about a lot. I just kind of like, well, this is just me. This is just how I am, and I just kind of dealt with it. But even worse than that was I was spending a lot of time in the bathroom. I was hanging out in the bathroom for a little bit too long. When I got home from work, the second I walked in my door, I was in the bathroom. That's not the kind of thing that you want to talk to people about. So embarrassing. Oops. Yep. Okay. So I was in the bathroom a lot more than somebody should be hanging out in the bathroom. That was probably the worst symptom of them all, was that I spent a lot of time in the bathroom. Yeah. So that leads me to where I am today. Fast forward several years of having these symptoms on a daily basis, probably like 5 years that I can remember having these symptoms. It started out not so bad. Each consecutive year just got a little bit worse, where I was like, oh my God, something is wrong with me. This is not normal to have these feelings all the time. I had this thing in my head that I thought it might be gluten because I've been hearing about it. This was a little over 2 years ago now. First I was like, oh my God, no, not me. My diet is basically straight up gluten. There was no way I could imagine a life without consuming it. But the symptoms were so horrible, I went cold turkey and I stopped consuming gluten. Completely, altogether, did not consume it. After the first couple days, I started to feel a little bit better. Some of the symptoms started to subside a little bit, but it took a good 2, 3, 4 weeks to start really feeling better. But then not only did I feel better, I felt amazing. I mean, it was incredible. It was night and day. I basically haven't looked back. So I stopped eating gluten. I mean, it took dedication. It wasn't the kind of thing like, oh, well, I don't eat gluten, but I can have this one cookie, but I can have a slice of pizza, or but I can eat this granola bar. I can have a beer. No, it was not that. It was not that. I am not going to consume gluten, and I stuck to it. Other than the few times where I've accidentally consumed it without knowing, I have not willingly consumed gluten for over 2 years, and it is amazing. Amazing. I no longer have any of the symptoms that I said, none of them. Not only do I never experience those in my life ever, but I feel a lot better too. That was basically it. I cut gluten cold turkey, 100%. It was out of my diet, and I started feeling a lot better, and I have never looked back. all of this being said, I was not willing to give up on eating really good food. I'm not willing to give up the stuff that I love. I'm just not that kind of person. Life is too short. I mean, if you're just gonna live a life where you're eating stuff that you don't like, that sounds sad. I would never want to do that. First, it was really hard for me to find stuff. At first, I felt like being gluten-free was just an awful thing and I would never get through it. But now I found that there's lots of really good food out there. I don't feel deprived at all. So do know that as I'm talking about this isn't some crazy weird workaround, and it's not that you have to spend a ton of extra money. It's just knowing the right brands to buy, the right places to buy them, and then kind of like weeding out the right products, I guess. So the big thing that I wanted to communicate when I had people asking me a little bit more about gluten and kind of what it's like to have a gluten-free diet, a really big hurdle that you usually overcome in the beginning of it is where to shop for food. Small towns typically have issues with providing good gluten-free options at the grocery store. So unless you're going to be doing a lot of cooking all by yourself with like the base ingredients, your options are definitely going to be, even frozen bread, your options are going to be limited if you live in a small town. I say this because I live in a pretty rural area. It's a long time to get to a grocery store that is considered a big box grocery store. We do have a local co-op store, which I love. It's like the local version of a Whole Foods, but it's very expensive. And though I love them and I support them as often as we can, it's still very expensive. And unfortunately, it's just not the kind of place that I can shop at every day. Think of the cost of organic food by itself, and now imagine it's going to cost a little bit more because it's gluten-free. Unfortunately. You have a couple options if you're going to search for gluten-free food at the grocery store. You're either going to go to your local grocery store, but chances are the options are going to be really, really limited. You are going to go to a Whole Foods type store, and they are going to be very expensive. And then the last option is to shop online to supplement whatever you can't get at your local store. Because our local store, which is 5 minutes away, is so convenient for us, we shop there a lot. We love to support the local community. Unfortunately, I can't get a ton of gluten-free stuff there, so I'll shop there a little bit of the time, and then I will shop online the rest of the time. My new favorite online place, which is part of why I'm doing this video today, is Thrive Market. And they have super cute packaging. I'm kind of a sucker for good packaging. You have to wait a couple extra days to get it, so you have to plan ahead, but they do, a whole thing for like organic in general, vegan, paleo, raw, like whatever your food preference is, they have a section for that. So what I like about shopping at Thrive Market, it's just easy. I can go and just click gluten-free, and then it just sends me to a bunch of gluten-free stuff. I don't have to sit there and look through the ingredients on everything. It's the best one that I've found so far, but there are some pros and cons with it. So as I start my little unboxing of it, I will talk to you guys about the pros and cons, just so you guys know. So finally, I discovered an online place where you can get a bunch of good gluten-free stuff. Yay! I like Thrive Market just because you're not really paying more money. In fact, it's sometimes 50% less than what you'd pay at a Whole Foods type store. I've compared them to Amazon prices, and I've compared them to our local organic co-op. Across the board, I feel pretty good about shopping online. My only hesitation is that it sometimes takes a couple days to get to you. So you're not going to get it immediately. You have to shop a little bit in advance for when you plan to have it. With every really good thing, there's a catch. If you were to shop online at Thrive Market like I do, you're going to save money, so it's really convenient, but there's a membership fee, and the membership fee is like $60. That's a lot of money. Just something to keep in mind. Like, it's a 1-year membership, so in some ways you're like, okay, I guess I could justify that. I'm gonna be gluten-free. 1 year for $60 isn't that bad, considering that the first time you shop, you're pretty likely to just save whatever you would have paid on the membership. Case in point, the very first time that I shopped there, I saved like, I don't even know what it was. I think it was like $90 or something that I would have spent if I had gone to Whole Foods. Granted, I did spend a lot on my stuff, but I also saved a lot of money. So there's a 30-day trial that you can do with Thrive Market, and basically if you do the 30-day trial, then you could get your first couple boxes without having to pay a membership fee, but you have to know that like they're gonna have your credit card on file. You either have to cancel in order to avoid getting charged $60, or you just say like, yay, I finally have a place where I can get really good healthy food and I'm willing to pay the $60 because it's worth it. So no matter what you do, just know that like don't miss out on canceling if you don't think it's for you, or else you're going to get charged. I wouldn't be talking about them if I didn't think it was an awesome company. I did some research before I officially kind of jumped on the Thrive Market bandwagon. But every time that somebody buys a membership, they give a membership to a family in need. That way you know that you're doing something fairly good. If you buy a membership, it's like buying somebody else a membership. That's not such a bad thing. I did bite the bullet and bought a membership, and I've been pretty pleased since then, and I'll show you the kinds of stuff that we've been purchasing from them. Just so you guys do know, the link that's in my description, if you want to check it out, you can get 20% off plus free shipping just for checking them out. Yeah. So I'm gonna bust into my box now because I've been waiting a whole day. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys some of the yummy stuff that I get from Thrive Market. Graham cracker crust. I really like sweet stuff. This is going to be raspberry season soon. So this particular graham cracker crust is going to be made into a raspberry pie. The key with a raspberry pie is to have a good crust. I usually make a little bit of my own crust, and I'll make kind of a yummy, chewy, like a shortcakey crust. But then I usually also put them in this because I plan on making a lot of raspberry pies. We eat a lot of Mexican food. Rice, corn tortillas, vegetables and things like that. But sometimes we want to have yummier sauces, and a lot of them are gluten-free, but a lot of them aren't. If you look at the back of half the packets in the store, you'll see that they have some sort of wheat in them. And it really stinks because it ruins what would otherwise be a pretty simple meal. They don't need to have wheat in them, but they do. It's really frustrating. So I will buy packets like these, like it's actually the sauce in it. These are things that are at a lot of grocery stores. You probably have a Bob's Red Mill section. Sometimes it's an end cap or an area by the baking stuff. I love the cornbread and the pizza crust, so I buy these frequently. The price is so good on Thrive Market that I buy them there. So these are the other things that I just, cinnamon roll mix and cheese bread mix. When I went gluten-free, that was like one of the things that I constantly was mourning, that I didn't have access to a cinnamon roll. There's just like nobody makes a gluten-free cinnamon roll. It just doesn't exist. It's never worth it for a place to make one. And then I discovered these bad boys, and they're amazing, and I will make them sometime and I'll eat them in front of you and you can see just how good they are. This is another thing that I have like pretty much exclusively purchased from Thrive Market and love. You also occasionally get things wrapped in really cute wrapping paper. You guys are gonna laugh at me about this, but this is a new experiment that we're doing. This is not something that I typically buy, so I cannot say one way or another if these products that I'm holding are any good whatsoever, but they are natural deodorants. I've got one for my husband and one for me. Super natural, fair trade deodorants. And the ingredients are basically shea butter, coconut oil, non-aluminum baking soda, and arrowroot powder. Beyond what we eat and put into our body through our mouth, we've thought about what comes into our body with our lotions and shampoos and deodorants. This is something that we are going to be venturing into, so I'll let you guys know how it goes. Rice cakes, just because I love having these as snacks. More yummy mixes. Again, if your store is a bigger store, you might even have this brand. It's called Pamela's. I really like it. They've got good all-purpose flour mixes as well. Super good. And then the last thing that I got is peanut butter. Most of the stuff that I buy are other brands outside of the Thrive Market brand. You'll see that they also have a bunch of their own branded stuff. I'm just a huge peanut butter fan, like a crazy peanut butter fan. We buy this peanut butter a lot because I eat a lot of peanut butter. However, the difference is the sugar in this one is quite a bit higher, whereas this one, there's no added sugar, and it is organic, non-GMO, creamy peanut butter. Sometimes if you get organic peanut butters, it's like all oil, and it can be very hard and then a whole bunch of gross, greasy oil. If you haven't shopped for a non-general store-bought peanut butter, it might be a little bit of a rude awakening because it's always a little bit drippier, but for the most part, it's a really good creamy peanut butter, and it tastes really good. It tastes more like peanuts, but it's still more thick considering what you might find if you purchase other organic peanut butters, which are just like goopy, drippy, gross. I really like this. Super excited to have it back in my life. So, That's the general type stuff that I end up purchasing at Thrive Market, but you can check it out and see if there's anything that interests you. If you're vegan, raw, paleo, organic, gluten-free, it's super easy to shop. You just go to their homepage, you click on whichever filter you want. It just throws up a bunch of really good options. Everything from like foods that are complete to ingredient type stuff. For me, I try to just get some of the staples, the stuff that's gonna get me by and make it feel like I am still eating a regular meal, you know, whether it's pizza crust or brownie type cake goodie stuff, peanut butter, sauce mixes, things like that. I just want stuff that lets me eat like I have always eaten, just not have all those awful symptoms that I talked about before. I feel like I've pretty well covered what it's like to be gluten-free, at least for me. It doesn't feel like a burden the way it did in the beginning. In the beginning, it was really hard to find good options. Now, like I said, we shop a little bit at our local store. We get all of our fruits and vegetables. We get our general basic stuff, and then I supplement the rest of my stuff, mostly with Thrive Market, but it just depends. Then, honestly, just shopping online is not a bad way to go. That is why I use Thrive Market and wanted to show you guys my unboxing. I think that's it. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope that this has been informational for you. And if you have any more questions about anything gluten-free related, about my experiences with it, the food that I eat, how I get by, how I feel now, how I felt before, literally anything, let me know. I'm happy to talk about it, even the kind of grody stuff. Thank you again. If you are on my channel for the first time and you enjoyed this video, this is not actually a typical video for me, but please do consider subscribing because I'll do a little bit more like this. And then I'm always doing my purging, decluttering, minimalism videos. Yeah, I just like to have you guys hanging out with me. I will talk to you guys later.